Hello, friend. Welcome to Bestest, where we sift through the noise so you don't have to. I'm Brian Hart.
I'm Karen McFarland-Holman.
And this week we have a special thank you series where I talk about my favorite cool sheets that Karen shared, and she's going to do the same. And today I'm going to share stories of old.
And I'm going to share a podcast episode that will save the planet. Let's get to it.
I'm going to be talking about, this time, a YouTube channel, and this is like stories of old. You talked about this on episode 212, and yep, I think you knew. I knew before you finished talking about it. You knew before I even could finish how much I love it. You knew I love this. I love stories. I love stories so much. And this one hit me in a couple different ways, though. I've been actually, my love for stories has been evolving and growing more and more. The more I think about them, the more I love them. And the fact that I thought about starting this YouTube channel with very similar ideas to that specific channel kind of blew me away. But the reason why I love stories, it's not just that, you can listen to a story or read it or watch it, and it can take you to a new world and spark your imagination for years to come. It can change you. And it's some of the oldest forms of communication. Back when we were tribes and cavemen, they're thinking that stories was maybe the first time that we really built community and communicated things and evolved as human beings. But also, when I was growing up, I was so always fascinated by people that could tell a good story. They always had everyone's full attention, how they would stir people and stir the reaction, my reaction, and just the power that a good story would have long after it was told. Some of my first memories was scary stories at summer camp. I still think about those to this day. My grandpa, who's a really good storyteller, I would always be mesmerized and everyone around him. And he was a man of few words, but when he told a story, everyone listened, and I loved that. I have never thought that I was a good storyteller. I always thought it was kind of a superpower that no one could obtain, only a few people. I know that's false now, and also I've noticed that stories are everywhere. I'm a filmmaker by trade. I edit. That's telling a story. So I am a good storyteller, but I want to get better. So I want to keep learning about this. I want to be able to orally tell stories. That's my weakest part of storytelling. I love it. And I think this YouTube channel will help a lot. And it might help you too. If you like stories, check out Like Stories of Old.
I'm so glad. I knew you would love it.
Yeah.
But I also really appreciate all of your experience with stories throughout your life.
Yeah.
And how you started out as just a kid getting mesmerized. And then now it sounds like you're ready to unfold as a storyteller.
Well, certainly in certain mediums, I've been doing that for a long time,
true.
and I never thought that I was. So it was really cool to be like, it's just like being an artist, film, making film, editing film, that is art. So it's different forms, and so I like that. So yeah, I did say, now I don't want to be a professional storyteller or even go up in front of a crowd, do a TED Talk, although I curated a lot, so it was super meaningful to me. I'm just more curious. I'm curious, just like our show. So I want to learn more. I want to get better at it, and even if it's just, I'm not like a public speaker. That's never been something that's interests me, but just to get better at crafting stories, I think I'm super into that. So
love it.
I love it.
Yeah. Yay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My cool sheet comes from episode 186 when Brian talked about a podcast episode. And this comes from the podcast, How to Save the Planet. The podcast episode is, Are Electric Cars Really Better for the Climate? I've been thinking about this issue for years, and I've also been looking for information on this exact topic. So this podcast episode was just absolutely perfect for me. The podcast, How to Save the Planet, is hosted by Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson and Alex Blumberg. And in this episode, they come at this issue of electric versus gas-powered vehicles without assuming anything. I love that. They and their team rounded up experts and they dive into it. They take all things into account, and not just the car itself, but also where you live and what is the source of energy in your local grid. The spoiler, but it's a good spoiler, is that their expert, Nicholas Hill, stated that it's very clear from doing a series of studies, including a full cycle analysis, that is essentially the car cradle to grave, that electric vehicles are unquestionably better for our climate than conventional gasoline-powered cars. That said, it's not just a simple answer, and that's why this episode is worth listening to. For example, there's one part of the life cycle where conventional gas-powered cars do better than electric vehicles, and that's when they're actually being built. Because producing the batteries for electric vehicles is really energy intensive. Appreciating the complexity of these kinds of questions is so beautiful, and I love how they do this. And you realize, or you're reminded, that nothing is simple. I also really like how they're not just reporting on this, but they're actually talking like real people. And one of my favorite conversations throughout the course of this podcast episode is when they were talking about one of them reflecting on this dilemma of trying to decide between regular butter wrapped in paper versus vegan butter in a plastic tub. And those are the kinds of things that all of us struggle with. I love this podcast episode. Are electric cars really better for the climate?
Oh yeah, this is a good one. It's the same thing. I had the same question for so long. I was like, I know it sounds better, but is it really better? You just don't know. I knew about the process of, when the electric cars are being built and what a rare resource those batteries are and how intense that is. So I was like, maybe it's not. Maybe this is hype. Maybe, people are trying to sell Teslas. So maybe they're,
exactly.
not manipulating data, but just, accentuating the good stuff and kind of sweeping under the rug maybe the worst stuff.
Telling the story.
Yeah, stories of old.
Points of view, yeah.
That's a story of old.
And this is the thing, is there's energy that's being put in, but then there's also other kinds of things you want to take into account, like mining.
Yeah.
So maybe the mining process takes less energy than building a hydroelectric dam and getting that, but you are stripping away the side of a mountain.
Yeah.
Okay, building a dam has its own issues too. So there's so much to take into account.
It's super complex. And I think I have a couple, like maybe one or two other links besides the podcast of like other good non-biased resources, maybe either that they mentioned or other ones that I found kind of in conjunction. So definitely check out the show notes at bestest.com/thankyou2021. And then you can check all those out because you should have questions and you should check it out.
Yes.
It's worth looking at.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thanks for that episode.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for joining us, friend. I'm Brian Hart.
I'm Karen McFarland-Holman.
And let us know in the comments, what's one of your favorite stories?
And let us know if you think electric cars will outnumber gas-powered cars someday.
If you're enjoying the show, please smash that like button and share it with a friend.
Stay tuned tomorrow for another great show.
And don't forget to stay curious.